What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Here we are with another reaction. In this, we have Trump explodes as India and China cut off medicine supplies to the U.S. India is supposed to be the pharmacy of the world. China creates so much that we buy from, and now they both about to cut off. Jeez. All right, bro, Trump, you better figure it out, dog, because you're isolating us from everybody else. Nobody's gonna want to do any kind of business with us. Before we jump in, if you guys happen to enjoy, please don't forget to smash that subscribe button. Give the video a thumbs up. Also, if you like to support the channel by becoming a member, all you gotta do is hit the join button and receive your exclusive benefits. Let's dive in.
In 2025, the Trump administration slapped a brutal 50% tariff on Indian goods, a move that instantly sent shockwaves through global markets. At first, it seemed like just another headline in the endless noise of global politics. But then came the silence from India, calm, deliberate, unsettling. Millions of Americans soon discovered the battlefield wasn't overseas. It was inside their pharmacy aisles. Imagine standing at the counter, your doctor's prescription in hand, and the pharmacist looks at you and says, "Sorry, not available. Supply disrupted. The medicines you've taken for years, gone." What looked like a bold economic strike in America might soon be remembered as the greatest blunder of Trump's presidency. Because India is not the kind of nation that sits still and absorbs the
Mm-mm,
blow. It
mm-mm,
doesn't forget. It doesn't surrender. And
mm-mm.
when pushed, it finds quiet, strategic ways to push back,
Yeah,
ways that hurt more than anyone expected.
India gonna be good because India doesn't rely too much on one nation. And at this point, India's trying to get to the point where they're self sufficient, where they're not relying on any nations. And so India's always going to be good, right? The British already came over and took everything. So they started from nothing and built themselves up again. But why would we destroy that relationship with India? It doesn't make any sense. It's a terrible move. Terrible move.
Because what most Americans didn't know was this: over 40% of their generic medicines came from India.
I
Not
figured.
luxury drugs, not rare treatments, the basics: antibiotics, insulin, blood pressure pills, cancer medicines. For decades, India had been the world's pharmacy, making essential drugs up to 70% cheaper than US factories. And suddenly, that lifeline was tightening. Shelves went empty, prices doubled. Patients started walking away without their meds. And for the first time, people realized this wasn't a trade war on paper. This was a healthcare crisis, one prescription at a time. The signs came quietly: a delay in refills, a skipped
Mhm.
dose, an empty shelf. But then the wave hit. Diabetics couldn't find insulin. Cancer patients were told to wait weeks for pills. An elderly man in Texas saw his heart medication jump from $28 to $91 in a month. His explanation? A simple slip. Drug unavailable. Imported supply disrupted, no warning, no hotline, just the cruel math between his pills and his rent. And he wasn't alone. Across
No,
Chicago,
that's insane. That's I have to understand why drugs are astronomically more expensive here than in other places. I fail. I fail to get it. I know the US is about profit and companies want as much profit as possible, but we're talking about drugs here. I'll be seeing like 10 to 15 times, maybe even more than that, expensive than it's sold in other places. And I'm just trying to figure it out. Like, is it literally all about profit or is there something that well, what is it? I don't get it. I seriously don't understand it.
Dallas, Miami, patients started splitting pills, skipping doses, or giving up entirely. Not because they wanted to, because survival had been priced out. This
Mm.
wasn't about inconvenience. This was about breath, heartbeat, survival. And none of them had a vote in tariff negotiations. They didn't sit at trade tables. They didn't draft memos. Yet here they were, caught in the crossfire. This wasn't just about economics anymore. It was about humanity. The world expected India to scream back, to hold dramatic press conferences, to protest loudly. But New Delhi didn't raise its voice. Instead, it moved in silence. Production tightened, shipments delayed, supplies rerouted. No ban was needed, no threats made, just a quiet squeeze. Because India knew the truth.
Mhm.
Without its generic medicines, America's healthcare would stumble. And while U.S. officials scrambled behind closed doors talking about stockpiles, fast-tracking local factories, and rerouting through third parties, India had already redrawn the map. Supplies started flowing to Africa, to Latin America, to Europe. Not retaliation, redirection. Behind the scenes, India was deepening talks with its BRICS
Mhm.
partners, Brazil, Russia, China, South Africa. Together, they began shaping what some now call a medicine belt, a
Ooh.
coalition not just about trade, but about rewriting access, prioritizing emerging economies over the United States. For decades, Washington had pushed India to produce cheap drugs. It lowered American insurance costs. It kept co-pays manageable. It propped up an expensive system, but now the same leverage America helped build was being used elsewhere. And for the first time, Americans faced the irony. The country that prided itself on global dominance was standing outside the very pharmacy it once relied upon. If the medicine crisis shook households, the next blow rattled boardrooms.
So you mean to tell me that we was pressuring India to make it cheap, and they was making it cheap for us before, yet they were super freaking expensive once they got over here. But what it's gonna look like once we lose that access, and we gotta make it ourselves. But I tell you, man, this that's not gonna be pretty at all.
Apple, the trillion-dollar tech giant, suddenly found itself gasping. Here's why. In late August 2025, the Trump administration justified tariffs as a national security response to India's oil trade with Russia. Electronics were added to the list. And in one stroke, India, a nation once seen as America's strategic ally, was hit like an adversary.
Why would
But
you
the
do that?
consequences didn't just land on New Delhi.
Didn't they just transfer a lot of their business from China to India? But now if you tariff that, and you already tariffing China, they can't move production back to China, I'm assuming, or I don't know. I'm sure that would take a lot of freaking money and work and time. And so, yeah, yeah, Apple's about to be hit, which means that cost is gonna get sent to freaking all of us because everybody gotta have their iPhones. I'm an Android man, but this is crazy.
They landed on Cupertino, California, because by 2025, India wasn't just a side player in Apple's supply chain. It was the heart.
Yeah,
Numbers don't lie. In the second quarter of 2025, 71% of all iPhones sold in the US were assembled in India, not China. Indian factories exported $3.2 billion worth of iPhones in just 3 months. 97% of those phones were bound for American consumers. India had become Apple's hedge against China, a hedge worth billions. And suddenly, tariffs made that lifeline fragile. If those Indian iPhones were hit with 50% taxes, the consequences would be instant. Costs would surge, prices would jump, supply chains would buckle,
yeah,
and Apple's perfect logistics machine, built on hype and precision, would start breaking.
yeah, for
Think of
sure.
Tamil Nadu, where Foxconn employs 40,000 workers, mostly women, in factories symbolizing India's Make in India ambition. Billions invested, dreams of becoming a global tech hub, and now uncertainty, momentum shaken. For Apple, it was supposed to be a hedge against geopolitics. For India, it was a path to industrial pride. But one tariff threatened both. For Washington, the irony couldn't be sharper. Tariffs were meant to pressure India into compliance. Instead, they pushed India into defiance. Protests broke out in Punjab. Farmers burned effigies of Trump, calling it a national insult. Public anger framed this not as economics, but as sovereignty. India was no longer playing the role of passive partner.
Yeah.
It was standing tall as an independent power.
And that's how India sees themselves, and rightfully so. They're not seeing themselves as, hey, like I'm a sidekick to the superhero, or hey, like let me just do what they say. They no, India's like we are equal. I see you as equal. I see myself as equal, and will be treated as such. And if you try to act like you're above me, I will respond accordingly. So you try to tell me, hey, you try to make me bend the knee, slap these tears, do this or else do that, or okay, cool. That's how you cool. You want to slap tariffs on us? You know what? We're gonna start making different partnerships around the world. We're just gonna redirect everything that was flowing that way. Yeah, it's gonna hit for a little bit, right? It's gonna hit us, but we're just gonna redirect, and in the long run, it's gonna hit you way harder than it hit us.
While Apple scrambled, India started looking elsewhere. Talks with Russia, deeper ties with China, engagement with Africa and Latin America. Not out of rebellion, out of necessity. Global trade lanes were shifting, and for the first time in decades, the U.S. was not at the center.
Hmm.
Apple tried to cushion the blow, announcing a $100 billion investment in U.S. domestic manufacturing. But the message from India was clear. It would not bow. This wasn't just about iPhones. It was about the very balance of globalization.
Yeah.
The U.S.-India partnership, once seen as a counterweight to China, was straining. For consumers, the impact was direct. Tariffs meant higher prices. What once felt like luxury now risked becoming unreachable. For global politics, the shift was undeniable. India wasn't leaning west or east. It was carving its own identity, a multipolar world where India stood as a pillar. Step back and the picture sharpens. On one side, America faces medicine shortages, tech supply shocks, and rising prices. On the other side, India is silent but steady, redirecting trade, forging alliances, asserting independence. What began as tariffs is now a test of power. Who controls survival? Who sets the terms of trade? At the core of this story are two truths. The ordinary American, counting pills at the pharmacy, bargaining with survival. The global boardroom, watching Apple struggle to balance supply chains against politics. Both reveal the same lesson. Trade wars are never just numbers. They're about people. They're about nations. They're about dignity. India has shown something extraordinary. It didn't shout. It didn't threaten. It
Mm-mm.
acted
Plain and
quietly,
simple.
strategically, deliberately. By
Facts.
doing so, it revealed the fragility of systems once thought unshakable. America's healthcare, America's tech sector, even Apple's empire. And through it all, India's message was clear. It is no longer a junior partner. It is a power in its own right. So the question isn't about tariffs anymore. It's about the future. Will this crisis be remembered as the moment America realized its vulnerabilities? Or will history mark it as the moment India stood tall and rewrote the rules of global trade? In the end, medicines and iPhones may look like products, but they are symbols of survival, of pride, of sovereignty. India has proven it can bend the global system without firing a shot. The world is watching. Will this be remembered as a show of strength or the biggest blunder of Trump's presidency? We'll leave that for you to decide. And if you want more stories that uncover the truth behind global power shifts, don't forget to subscribe.
That I want to hear y'all's thoughts in the comment section. I think it was a huge blunder. I think tariffing India and try to make them do what we want them to do is wild, ridiculous, idiotic. We spent so long trying to build that relationship with India. India could be a counterweight to China over there, and so to push them closer. And I'm not saying like would be, because India is going to do what's in the best interest for India, not what's in the best interest for the U.S. As you see, clear as day. And so, yeah, I just feel like that relationship was one that was strengthening, and I believe they're still talking about deals and such. They're trying to mend it. I hope, but that's all we have. Y'all talk to me in the comment section. Let me know what you think. If you enjoyed, don't forget to subscribe, get a bit of thumbs up, check out the next. I'll see y'all next time.